Hello everybody, this is Howard of AV Transfers. Today we are playing with a very cool vintage video camera. Let's put our camera lens right in there and I'm hoping it will focus on there. Almost does. Here we are looking at a vintage video camera from about 1983. This is a JVC GX78E. Now, when I was a little guy, this was my dream video camera. I managed to get the GX44E, which was the same except it didn't have the power zoom, and it had a slightly slimmer construction on this part of the lens, because for some reason that wasn't as sophisticated. And I think, to be fair, this is pretty sophisticated. It's got a little window there. You'll see with your iris settings. So I've powered this up. It's been on display probably for a couple of years. And it's part of a new series. I'm looking at these early video cameras that predate the modern CCD and CMOS sensors that you have today in modern video cameras, which are far more sensitive to light and produce far better pictures. In this camera, there are two tubes. Yes, you heard me right, tubes. In the front of the camera, there's a very, very archaic looking lens. This is a TV zoom lens, 11.5 to 70 millimeters. And this one, would you believe, reminds me more of a Super 8 kind of lens. And in front of that, you've got some options. You've got your manual iris, you can open and close the aperture. You've got an indoor and outdoor setting. So if you go outdoors, it sets it physically with a different temperature filter so that the image appears correctly balanced. And the indoor, if you're using indoor lighting, you get a more accurate white balance. Obviously, those are set for old incandescent bulbs, so that also is a questionable option. But this is a camera I've powered up, and I've never done any work on it. I've kept this as an example because it really is just in very nice condition. Very, very nice condition for an old camera. It has lost the little foam cover, the wind shield on the microphone. But beyond that, pretty good. Pretty good. The lens is clean as far as I can see, except for a bit of dust on it, which I should clean off, which I will in a moment. And unfortunately, it looks like as it warms up, the picture is jumping around a lot less. But if you look through the viewfinder, you'll see there's a little cathode ray tube in there. And great fun. So I bought this camera and the accompanying VCR with it for not a lot of money on eBay. I think the shipping was as much as the cost of the item. Having said that, though, I got lucky. Because it was in a case, there was very little wrong with the actual machine. The rubbers and things are in very good shape inside. Very good shape. And this goes back to probably the 1983 era. What was nice about this particular type of setup is you could mix and match your camera to your VCR. So you had this portable unit. You could get a timer and a tuner, I think, separately. But not only that, you could use a different camera. And there were a number of different video cameras from JVC at the time that all conformed to the standard. This is just my favorite because of personal reasons. If we look at the bottom of this, you'll see it is made in Japan, obviously. Let's just have a look and see what it says there. So draws 6 watts, 12 volts. Okay. Now, after a while, the video camera, the video supply, the tape machine, oh God, words, shuts itself off. It goes into battery save mode. So let's put it on again. There we go. And my intention here is to somehow get a recording on here This is a Vhs-C machine, standard Vhs-C. It plays the Vhs-C tapes that would normally need an adapter natively. Is that an acceptable word still? Natively? I don't know. But there it is. So unfortunately it didn't come with a battery or power supply. Luckily, it does have some battery clips on the back. And I've used some alligator clips to tie it into this power supply. I'm feeding it a bit more than the 12 volts. This power supply is surprisingly noisy for some reason. But it's drawing like just under 800 milliamps, yeah. So yeah, just a really nice little VCR from the day. Let's just have a look at the front. And if you were, I mean, I remember being in school back in the day and seeing someone use one of these, and I was like absolutely taken. I didn't even know there was a difference, VHS and Betamax. But essentially this is VHS just in a small shell, which was a very clever idea, I've got to say. Because the tapes are probably have worn better, have lasted better, because they're of a much wider size than 8mm tape is. On the front, headphones, microphone, remote. So you can start and stop recordings quite nicely on this from the camera by using this button. This is like a pause and stop. And you've got your full control, so you can basically plug this straight into a TV afterwards. It even has an RF modulator built in, I think. Actually, am I talking out of my pants? Hang on, let's just double check. Yeah, it does. So here we go. It's got tracking, RF out, so straight into a TV, and of course your audio and video out. No input for that. So maybe it wasn't so good as a tuner, a recorder for a tuner, or maybe there's another plug somewhere. Audio dub, swing search, pause. I like a top loader. In many ways, a top loader is better because a top loader is less likely to give you problems with the loading mechanism later. But in here we can see we've got a really nice bunch of controls. And when you're recording and you're in the field, you close that up so you can't push anything by accident. And you can even protect your tapes with record lock. It's even got a nice little cover over the LCD still with a rather non-intuitive counter, but I suppose good enough if you wanted to know where you just stopped recording. Another nice feature about these is you can, from this camera, you can actually view your recordings back. So not that you can see it now, but you can play your recordings back. I can see there's something going on here. I would say that this needs capacitors. It's definitely Twinko crookulating, as they say in the classics. If you look in here, that little U is for underexposed. R means record, and white is white balance. I think if you set the white balance manually, then that'll light up. So no on-screen display, nothing to make horrible burn marks, and that is a good viewfinder. I can promise you, you look through that, boy, you have got a decent, let me see if I can get it on the camera. There you go. Wow, look at that. You really get a pretty good idea of what you can and can't see on that. Let's make some trails there. Hey, there I am in living color. So based on this really cool video camera, it inspired me. It inspired me to make videos my hobby. And then, of course, look at me now. Look at me now, mama. So that's the camera that really got it all started. And it's actually interesting story, if you like personal stories, as to how we originally got this camera. My brother was a very keen photographer. He loved his camera. He had a Nikon. I think it was the FE2. It was a good Nikon, and he bought that new, and he'd saved or whatever it was. He sold his kidneys. I don't know. Well, he got this thing. And I had my heart on a video camera. And he sold that camera. And we went together to buy one of these cameras, which in those days, we bought just the camera and it came with a power supply, and I think it was like a 10-meter lead, extension lead. So you had to plug it into your home VCR. It had just video and audio and a power supply. And then you could walk around taking pictures. So it was always my dream to be able to go outside with a camera. That was like holy grail, if you like. We never got that, but eventually I made a very long extension cable that I could go into the garden and video, and it was a horribly noisy affair, but it worked. And it kind of inspired me. I never made any great movies. Unfortunately, Steven Spielberg, I'm not. But this camera inspired me, and it was just like a mystical thing. And I had this real weird fascination with these cameras because some of them had what we call through the lens viewfinders, like the Sony Beta movie. The first Sony Beta movie didn't have a video screen. It had an optical prism, and the image went to the prism and the image went out to the viewfinder optically and then to the video camera. So you never really saw properly what you were filming. And I was fascinated. I remember whenever I saw a camera which had the same kind of thing but an optical viewfinder, I think there was one from Telefunken or Akai or one of those, I was obsessed with this camera. And I was like, there was one in the shop on display, and whenever I went into the shop I always pointed it around. And it was actually quite sad because often they left these cameras running on display near the TV department, and they were like just fixed on a tripod. And after a while, the lighting being bad and inside, these cameras weren't very sensitive to light. There would be like burn marks, burn trails on the screen, and they actually burnt into the tube of the camera. So eventually the shape of whatever it was pointing at was burnt into the tube, and even if you pointed it away it was still burnt in, so it was useless to sell to anybody. So you couldn't point these for very long at anything, which is kind of cool. So just a bit of a fun show and tell about that. We've come a long way in this kind of technology, but I suspect the best is yet to come. I'm looking forward to seeing 8K, 16K cameras. Who knows where it'll end? Interestingly enough, I don't know if it's just me, but when you look at high definition content today, if you zoom in, you'll find the detail is actually quite poor. A lot of the detail is being lost by compression and people trying to save money in broadcasting. Generally, high definition television is better off terrestrial signal than online, I find, in general. And there's a bit of a trade-off because actually the end result does actually look quite similar to what was initially standard definition content. So that's something I'm kind of watching. Obviously, uploading to YouTube, I have no influence over what they do to my videos, but obviously they cram it down, shrink it down, and I get that. At the same time though, remember, these cameras produce better pictures under good light than you would imagine. Maybe not as good as today's things, but still worth a look. So I'm going to finish off this video with a little bit of a video of what comes out of this camera. So same lighting we had with the other film that you saw a few seconds ago, and this is what it looks like. So if we go up to a bright light, you'll see a little trail forming, and I've got to focus quite quickly, although this is not an autofocus machine. You kind of get the idea. And if I film myself, which is like this, I have no idea what I'm filming because I can't see if you can see that. Let's just point it out outside, and outside we'll focus it and we'll change the light to outdoor. Oh, it's actually frozen. Oh, there we go. Now we're on outdoor, so the color should look a lot better, and there you get an idea of what we're looking at. It's not a very interesting topic. I suppose we could just film the grass, give you an idea of what the grass looks like. Let's just put myself in front of here, and maybe you'll get an idea of what these cameras can do. So that's not bad for a camera that was made in 1983. Yeah, you decide, right? If you like this kind of stuff, please subscribe. More of it coming. There's a Sony one like this sitting around waiting to be looked at, and potentially a whole lot of other vintage technology that I'm going to be taking a look at here at the AV Transfer Studio here in Borehamwood, England. So for now, thanks for watching.